All. This is Dr. Mubin Sayed from drbeen.com. Welcome to one more show. So today we're going to talk about a study, Preprint from Cleveland Clinic. Not the best of the studies. I will put this study in the same category as the study that said 5 times more POTS in um, infection cohort compared to the vaccination cohort. Remember that study, and the numbers were not really very interesting there, but they showed it in a strange way. This study has interesting data. So we're going to go over the data, but it also has a lot of gaps that we should be aware of. So you like vaccines or you do not like vaccines. This talk today will not promote this study to be a proof of weakness, because I'll actually show you that it's not a proof of weakness of immune system. Neither is this a proof of some vaccine doses and some issues with our immune system. It also does not really show very good data for bivalent as well. Only 30% effectiveness within 3 months. They did not go beyond 3 months because they just recently did it and there is not much time. So they'll have to do it more. They'll have to do more data analysis. And of course, it's a preprint yet. So they will do peer review. There'll be feedback to them. They would provide some more clarity. So hopefully by the time it publishes, if it publishes, I suspect it will not publish. But by the time it would publish, there may be more data. So let's look at it together. So this is the study, effectiveness of the coronavirus disease 2019 bivalent vaccine. So let me give you the punchline for this effectiveness right away. That was 30%. That is the effectiveness of the booster, bivalent booster. So you be the judge for that one. I believe I always look at these effectiveness from the point of view of what CDC used to say, that, hey, we need to have above 60% of effectiveness, number one. Number two, I have given this message many times in the past, that expecting from a previous infection or expecting from a vaccine that infection will not occur is incorrect. And if you have been here as a regular viewer, you probably know that I used to say that a vaccine will not put a stop sign in front of your mouth and nose to say, because this person is vaccinated, no viruses are allowed to land. So infection can still occur. The question really should be, for the studies nowadays that are coming out, they should really talk about severity of the case. That is where the actual difference should appear. If there is a difference, that should appear there. And for this particular study, for severity, I just want to spill the beans right up front. So let me show you what it said about severity. Search for the word severity. This is what they said in their limitation section. So this is this study has several limitations. In there, they say there were too few severe illnesses for the study to be able to determine if the vaccine decreased severity of illness. That's the message. So severity is what they could not count. Infections are the one they counted. And I am so surprised that even in this day and age, when we know vaccines do not cause a stoppage of the infection, we still keep making studies on infection. Okay, so with this, let's look at the study a little more thoroughly. So I'm going to go over my notes first, and then I'll go over the document itself. The reason I want to go over my notes is that I'm seeing some other folks who kind of debunked this study or proved that this study is incorrect or proved this study is very important. And they have been using incorrect data points from here and there. For example, one of the presenters who said this study is useless said that the vaccine definition of the vaccine was not used as a few days when, remember we say that 14 days after the vaccination. So he said they did not use that kind of a measuring system. But they actually did use that system. Let me show you that as well. Um, so here, if I go and search for the word curve, then individuals were considered bivalent vaccinated 7 days after the receipt of a single dose of a bivalent vaccine. So um, there is a presenter who said that they did not look at the number of days after the vaccine; they just started from the day. And here he is actually incorrect. And then they say curves for the non-vaccinated state were based on data while the bivalent vaccination status of subjects remained non-vaccinated. That means if you got a bivalent vaccine, then till 7 days, they would still consider you non-vaccinated if you didn't have previous vaccines. And then curves for the bivalent vaccinated state were based on data from the date the bivalent vaccination status changed to vaccinated. That was, according to their definition here, 7 days after the day of receiving the bivalent vaccine. So that presenter was incorrect in saying that there is no such thing. But anyways, the point is, we are all kind of trying to interpret this one. And this study has such lack of data and such weak design. It is a retrospective cohort study with the people deciding to get themselves tested or not. And that is what they have used for their data. And so the behaviors are very different. For 0 dose, 1 dose, 2 dose, 3 dose, bivalent, they all behave differently. Their all settings are different. And they have not done deep enough analysis to go to these behaviors and rule them in or rule them out. So not a great study. But again, it's a preprint as well. So beating up a preprint study is just not the best. So let's look at some of the data points here. My notes here. So Cleveland study, I am actually surprised at the Cleveland Review Board who allowed this study design to go forward. They knew that this would not really do a lot of benefit. They spent time and they gave money to these researchers to come up, and you would see that how inconsequential this study's data is. So one big deal with the study came in as that somehow the study has proven that more shots increase the risk of vaccination infection. That means it is weakening the immune system, because there's no other explanation. But there are really many, many other explanations, because these shots were 200 days ago and 180 days ago, and the study is retrospective instead of the prospective. So people had to decide to take the test or not take the test. So lots of human behavior is involved in it. So did study show that? No, it did not. And there is no data in the study that said immune system became weak or immune system became strong. They were only trying to figure out the effectiveness of the bivalent, which was 30%. They said it was a surprise for us that we saw this trend that more vaccine shots means more infection risk. And I would discuss that. So my commentary, so this is my commentary, and this is why I'm not putting this forward, this discussion today, as a studies discussion. This is really a commentary. The study is actually not good enough to draw for it and present that in the form of drawings. That would have been a waste of time. So we always knew that the vaccines are not going to protect from infection. And by we here in this group, in this area, if the leaders of various organizations and countries said that this will not happen, you will not get infected, you will not transmit infection, it's on them. When they were saying it, I was saying here that there is no way that the vaccine would stop from infection. Severe outcome is very important. I believe nowadays we should not approve designs of studies with the infections. We should approve designs of studies with the severe outcome and check for them. Okay. So I already showed you this, that they said we didn't have enough severe outcomes to show that data. Now, here is what this showed, which is really interesting. There are two diagrams that are very interesting in this study. This is one diagram. This diagram showed that in the decreasing risk of um, getting infected, if somebody was not previously infected, they had the highest risk of getting infected, sure. Then last infection during Delta, second, and pre-Delta, third. So Delta was higher than the pre-Delta. Then BA1 and 2 was lower risk, and BA4, 5 is the lowest risk. Tell me something. Do you think it is anything to do with the deltas and the BAs, 1s and 2s? It is really time. What is the recent most variant? BA4 and 5. So if you get infected with BA4 and 5, you must be infected in recent days. And their study's time was September 12 to December 12. So you got infected in that time, you will probably not get infected again very soon. But if you were infected somewhere a year ago, your chances of becoming reinfected are going to be higher, both because of the new variant and because of the immune system waning in immunity. Now, this one not previously infected. So, whoever you guys are and gals are, you are some fast rabbits because, and I'm saying that in a loving way, because it is so strange that for 2.5 years or more, you have never been infected. Maybe there is, of course, we know that 30% are asymptomatically infected. So maybe some of you are actually infected and you never knew. Remember that there are two studies going on in San Francisco, one and the other one in Calgary, I believe, Canada, where they're trying to figure out that what is up with those folks who don't get infected with COVID. Their family members become infected, they don't become infected. And so they've been sending their blood samples, and the researchers are trying to figure out. I think in Canada, they're homing in on a gene that shows why these folks do not get infected. So not previously infected so far are really a very different cohort. Why do they not get infected? Are they good at their health maintenance, or do they have a genetic predisposition, or do they have some way of protecting themselves that we lapse in those areas? Don't know. Comparing them to the rest is kind of, I think, incorrect, but anyways, they have done it, and they're saying that those who are previously not infected have a higher risk. So this chart is really towards the how recent the infection is, more than just, hey, if you had this infection, then you have this risk. This part is a little interesting, that Delta had a higher risk versus before Delta. But anyways, time. Now here is the chart that has been making people become very excited or upset both ways. This chart here says that as you take more doses, so this is 0 dose, this is 1 dose, 2 doses, 3 doses, 3 plus doses. As you take more doses of the vaccine, your risk of getting infected becomes higher. And that is the data here. So there are a few things in this data. Somebody said that, hey, so their start date is September 12, 2022. That is when the bivalent became available for Cleveland Clinic, at least. So somebody said that, hey, after the vaccine, the time is not given properly, but they actually did give the time. This might actually be after the bivalent vaccine, up to 7 days considered as unvaccinated. Some people would actually object on that to say, well, that's really not unvaccinated. I actually think that is unvaccinated or yet not ready state, because the adaptive arm has to become triggered and start making antibodies. And when those antibodies have become available, then the protection would come in. Although I would repeat, this study didn't show a great efficacy or effectiveness, only 30%. But if you look at this one, it may be, and why I'm saying maybe, in the study's limitations. they have discussed this, that we think, so they have discussed various possibilities for what this is, because eventually this is a person's behavior to say, I'm going to go my and get myself tested. So maybe people who never had any doses felt that, hey, we are strong enough, or we have taken care of ourselves enough, or we have whatever, or they just don't get the infection, so they don't care for the vaccination as well. And that also means that if they do get cold, they probably are not going to go and get themselves tested, and that is why they're here. And those who are getting more vaccination doses, they are probably more concerned as well. That's why they keep getting the doses too, and they are more ready to go get the test done. In the flip side of the On the flip side of the coin, this could also be possible that those who were not vaccinated or had zero doses, they were more prone to go get tested because they're worried that, hey, I didn't get the vaccine, I haven't gotten the infection yet, so who knows, this cold is actually the infection, so I'm going to go get the test. And those who were vaccinated, they would say, well, I'm vaccinated, this may not be the COVID, I must just have a normal common cold, so no need to get tested. Meaning this works both ways. That tells you that this data is not sufficient to base a decision on it to say, yes, this data shows something or not. Because eventually it falls back on the human behavior to get themselves tested. Secondly, this data has nothing to do with severe cases or the moderate cases of the ICUs or hospitalization. This is only a case infection. So even they did this discussion. Let me show you. So it does not look like I'm just saying and you have to trust me. So let me go here in the limitations of their studies. Okay, I'll have to just find it. So 1 second, please. The study has several limitations, and if you see here, they keep going, and I'll just. A possible explanation for a weaker than expected vaccine effectiveness is that a substantial proportion of the population may have had prior asymptomatic Omicron variant infection. About a third of SARS-CoV-2 infections have been estimated to be asymptomatic. So that may be one possibility. Then 64% of the 18 to 64 age group population. So they have discussed more here. Then they also have discussed that the behavior for getting tested, the association of increased risk of COVID-19 with higher number of prior vaccine doses in our study was unexpected. A simplistic explanation might be that those who received more doses were more likely to be individuals at higher risk. Then they also talk about testing here as well. My point is, even they do not have a clear idea. Now, could they have a clear idea? Yes, they could have done a couple of things. And one of the presenters that I'm talking about who kind of dismissed this study, he said it correctly in his discussion. And I believe he was saying that if you see here, this is the table. Let me go to table 2. This is table number 2. It is the unadjusted and adjusted association with time to COVID-19. So if you see here, for example, if you had prior 2 vaccine doses, unadjusted association with time to get COVID is 2.24. And the confidence interval is 1.86 to 2.69. They could have drilled down further in here to say those in various, although this was a relatively young age group study, but they could have said, hey, 20 years to 30 is this, 30 to 40. That would have given us more information. Not that, hey, without that, the study is useless. It actually is. It doesn't teach me anything. But anyways, the other thing that they could have done was they could have gone deeper here for the clinical versus non-clinical. They had half of the population of these folks, about 51,000, were non-clinical staff, and half of them, 50.6% were clinical, and 49.4% were non-clinical. So pretty evenly split. They could have gone further in detail to say, within the clinical study, here were the people who were working in ICUs or in COVID wards versus someone who was not really exposed that much. However, they said in this paper that institutional policy did not allow us to dig deeper into the people's data. I would have thought that then this kind of a study should also be institution. Go here. Sorry. So if I go back here, institutional data governance rules related to employee data limited our ability to supplement our data set with additional clinical variables. So they could not really go deeper. But it would have been really interesting to see 2 doses or 3 doses, what kind of clinical work were they doing. But again, we are trying to make sense of a study that presents cases as the data and not severity. Actually, they said not enough severe cases. I would have still wanted them to tell us who were the severe cases. Even if they had said data are not statistically significant because of the small size, but it would have still been very interesting to say severe cases in unvaccinated, severe cases in vaccinated, 1 dose, 2 dose, 3 dose, 4 dose, bivalent. That would have been more valuable than this study's whole data set and manuscript. You tell me, what does it teach you? More infections? Did you see the time scale there? 0.00 to 0.0, sorry, not time scale, the incidence scale, 0.001, 0.002, 0.003. That is the scale of this chart. And the behavior is driving the data. It's my decision to go get tested or not. That is driving the data. Although they said that in our study, we could have thought that people could take a day off or two and not get tested, and then we would not know if they were infected or not. However, they said because in our hospital, in our setting, you can take a paid time out if you can prove with testing that you have COVID. They said that is a pretty good incentive for people to get tested. That may be actually incentive, and they discuss it in their study, that there may also be the incentive to get too many tests. And so they're saying it is possible that people got too many tests, and then that means more were discovered, even if they had asymptomatic cases. Although here they said we took symptomatic cases as positive. So I think you can understand that all sides of the information is present, but a conclusive causation is not there. Associations are present, but those associations only say this, that hey, here is the data. Now, was it because people were testing more or less? Don't know. Then it would have been really great if they had placed bivalent here as well. What I do not know in this data set is that, for example, let's say these 3 doses. Do these 3 doses contain the bivalent? I believe they do not. But if they do not, then where is the bivalent itself? If the more doses cause more vaccine, more infections, then shouldn't the bivalent somewhere over here be present with this kind of a higher chart? Why is that not shown here? And as I said, no data for severe. I would really have loved, even if there was a table, even if this was not statistically significant, that would have been a better data set for me. So now to discuss if the immune system becomes damaged, this is a theory that was started by a person we have discussed many times here, who said that innate arm will be destroyed by the vaccines. Then there was another time where European Medical Agency said, we are concerned about multiple boosters because of T cell exhaustion. I actually did that talk as well, and I discussed how T cell exhaustion can occur. However, there are many other such folks who have taken this to a stretch to say that more vaccine boosters will cause more immune damage. That is actually not true. Vaccine and its side effects, possible. I have just done those discussions. But saying this generally that the vaccine would destroy the immune system, let me present some reasons for why this is incorrect. First of all, let's just take this study. If more boosters, more shots are causing destroyed immune system, then people will not be getting infections, they will be getting severe infections. And they will not only be getting severe COVID, they will get severe anything. They'll get strep throat and they'll die from that because their immune system is destroyed. Innate arm of the immune system is a non-specific arm. It does not know vaccine from bacteria and the virus and others. Adaptive arm is specific. Adaptive arm knows I am triggered against this specific antigen and I'm going to fight this antigen. Innate arm, macrophages, dendritic cells, neutrophils, they do not know. So if these guys are destroyed, macrophages, dendritic cells, we will lose the capability of handling anything. And it is not, we will all become bubble boys. We'll have to live in bubbles if our innate immune system is destroyed. It is not that our innate immune system is destroyed and we are just running around and walking around and meeting people and are outside. That just is not going to happen. So here, this study would have a very different outcome if the immune system was destroyed. This reasoning for this guy, this behavior here, this chart, will have to be found in behaviors of the people or other such settings, exposure. Why are they getting more boosted? Are they concerned? Do they have comorbidities? Are they more nervous about COVID? Do they have a tendency to get tested quickly, etc.? But not in the immune system. There is one more set of studies. Remember this study, circulating spike protein detected in post-COVID-19 mRNA vaccine myocarditis. This was a study that just very recently came out, and I discussed it as well. In this study, and this is a screenshot from the study, so American Heart Association, that is where it is published. So good journal and good study. And here what they said was very interesting. Although this study in itself is an exception to the other studies. Anyways, in this study, they had said we found spike protein, the whole length spike protein circulating in the blood of the vaccinated individuals. They also found S1, but S1 was bound to the antibodies. The whole spike protein was not bound to the antibodies. And then they said that it is possible that the whole spike protein is able to escape the immune system, and that is why immune system is not able to bind with it. However, then they postulated that we know that the spike protein can bind with ACE2 and by itself cause dysregulation of the cells, especially endothelial and cardiac cells. And I have done that discussion before. Then they said this. Now talking about the immune system's weakness. Read this with me. Although minimal differences were seen in the T cell population, adaptive arm, individuals with myocarditis displayed distinct cytokine profile reminiscent of the profile seen in MIS-C, suggesting likely, now check this out, innate inflammatory activation with significantly elevated levels of interleukin 8 macrophages, interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor macrophages, IL-10 macrophages plus T helper 2 secrete that too, interferon gamma, and interleukin 1 beta. Interferon gamma's presence means innate arm will be amplified because interferon gamma is released. One major releasing cell is T helper 1. And when that cell releases interferon gamma, that would cause macrophages and dendritic cells to increase their function. It is an activator of the immune system. It's not a weakening system of the immune system. Lower IL-4 levels compared with the healthy vaccinated control subjects. There were two vaccinated cohorts, healthy vaccinated and myocarditis vaccinated. And here this showed that healthy vaccinated had a normal immune system and myocarditis vaccinated had a more expressive innate arm. So if you speak with those folks who keep harping on the idea that somehow immune system will be destroyed, if you ask them what will be destroyed, they will tell you two things: innate arm and T cells. With the innate arm, they'll say innate arm will just not work. And T cell, they'll say, will become exhausted. And you would hear a little more sophistication, you would hear is innate arm gets reprogrammed. Now, the innate arm reprogramming is the way the innate arm gets retraining or remembers. That is its memory system. Every time you have an infection where innate arm responds, it gets reprogrammed. Children's respiratory systems, macrophages, are reprogrammed to work better with the respiratory viruses because children are more often exposed to them. So that reprogramming is nothing dangerous. That is what happens in all of us. So innate arm here, overexpressive actually, in some, not all. So this idea of the innate arm destroyed is beyond even believable. Then let's talk about the adaptive arm. You just saw here, first, the interferon gamma increase. Interferon gamma actually comes from T helper 1 cells as well, which are adaptive arm. So if the adaptive arm was not working, why will they produce interferon gamma? Similarly, if you see here, the class switch towards an non-inflammatory IgG4. Remember, this became very popular as well, that, well, IgG4 has happened and IgG3 has reduced and the sky has fallen again. But this study actually showed how the adaptive arm was actually expressing as well. It was doing class switching. It was also doing affinity maturation, but it was working. And this was a very specific one. So adaptive arm, you could say that, hey, I'm only talking about COVID adaptive arm and I'm not talking about others. And I will have to say, yeah, sure. But still within the COVID adaptive arm cells, those that are specific to COVID type antigens, they were working fine. Why am I stressing on this one? Because the primary problem is these studies and their incorrect interpretations lead to people becoming afraid. You get a vaccine or you don't get a vaccine is your issue, your problem to solve, your decision to make. I have no place to say you should do one way or the other. I actually think that those folks who sit down as a talking head and then say, go do it or don't do it, they are both wrong. However, those who have gotten vaccinated, they see these studies and then the interpretations by some not so sincere media outlets, fringe outlets, and they become worried that what's going to happen to me? I got 2 boosters now. Am I in trouble? Is my immune system destroyed? No. If you're not living in a bubble because you got 2 boosters and now you cannot handle any infection and you need to be a bubble boy or bubble girl, then you're fine. Your immune system is working. Just the gut microbiome present in us. If our immune system is knocked down, just that gut microbiome would attack us and take us out. So we have seen this one as well. And if you see here, even in this study where they said, hey, we have more IgG4 and that is anti-inflammatory, which means actually less severe cases, less cytokine storm, right? In here, they said in a cohort of vaccinees with breakthrough infections, we did not obtain any evidence for an alteration of disease severity, which was mild in almost all of our cases. So the study that is being used nowadays, the top study that is the main player of the today's discussion, that study itself says we didn't have enough severe cases to put that data in front of you. I think they should have just put it in front of us anyways. Why to allow such speculations? And this study that was also used to say, well, this study shows that the immune system is not working, actually says that people only had moderate cases. It is the data from these people. So if you were concerned that the vaccines are destroying your immune system, then that concern is not accurate. Is it true that vaccines cause side effects in some? Yes. I have discussed it, my own family members. Somebody left a very, I'm sure that Steve Kirsch's, this is a common message within Steve Kirsch's community about me and my family, the way they articulate it. So somebody left that comment a few days ago, and it is, my wife is fine. She has recovered. Unfortunately, there are people who are vaccine injured and have not recovered. And similarly, there are COVID infected people who have long COVID or who died. And there are people who had asymptomatic COVID, and there are people who never get COVID. So running around with this kind of a study to say it has proven that the vaccines are bad, that also is not correct. And running around with parts like studies to say that it has proven that the infection is 5 times bad, that is also not correct. They both miss the data, and in case of parts, it was a misrepresentation as well. So love you all. There is no, from my side, it is not to push in one direction or the other. At least the data is in front of us. The narrative is in front of us. When you, before you, now you have, if you're here, you watched me, go to this PDF and see more. I cannot narrate the whole PDF because then I would just be that PDF. But there is a lot more data. Look at their limitations. Look at their discussion of the self-reporting. Look at their discussion of possibility of people over-reporting on one side, then under-reporting on the same side, and why that may be possible. So look at those data points. If I go back to the primary objective of the study, that effectiveness of booster vaccine, that is where my surprise is. 30% effectiveness within this time frame, 12 September to 12 December, within 3 months, just 30% effectiveness. That is what worries me more than this remaining. Anyways, this masks the actual problem. The actual problem is to look at the booster to say, why is that not working? Cool. So please like, subscribe, and share. In the description of this video, I forgot to present this in the beginning. In the description of this video, there is a link to this page, YT Special. This is just last few days now that we are offering the access to our medical lectures on drbeen.com for this price. We are creating course-based page selling plus CMEs. And because of that, this price will not be this in the future, in the coming future. So take advantage of that if you like. And see you next time. Please stay safe, happy, healthy. I hope this year continues to become a good new year for you, for healthy and prosperity and peace for health, prosperity, and peace. Like, subscribe, and share if you like this video. If you don't, then don't. And if you would like to support this work, if this work that looks at the data, it does not gaslight, at least I don't gaslight you towards one side or the other. I'm seeing some presenters who are pro-vaccine and they're just dismissing it and they're putting wrong data. And then there are folks who are not pro-vaccine and they are just putting another spin on it. At least you get to see the data here and then you can make your decision. With this, thank you very much. I would see you next time. Bye-bye for now.